Welcome back to our coverage of the 2018 ARB Moreton Island Fishing Classic. When Moreton wants to turn it on, not many can beat her. It's early spring and a beautiful time of year to be in this part of the world. We're hearing reports of the fishing being a little quiet so far. So with the day at our disposal, a plan is hatched to use the tides to our full advantage and do an anti-clockwise circumnavigation of the entire island. It is flathead country down here, so we're well equipped for a fish, and we'll just see where the day takes us. The bypass behind Tengaluma can get a little soft, so it's a good idea to drop your tyre pressures to about 15 psi for this part of the trip. It'll make for a more comfortable run over the tree roots and holes in the roadway. Once through though, it's a good idea to re-inflate. Once you're down on the western beach, it's also likely to be soft, and because the beach is narrow, needs to be traversed on an appropriate tide. You can get stuck here on a flooding tide, so it's a good idea to go south on the ebb, which is what we're doing today.
To give you an idea, if you haven't driven down this western side of Moreton Island before, at low tide, this is just one big sand flat until the deep blue water. So there's a lot of water that comes in, but it's only probably waist deep before it drops off. It's quite amazing to see the difference between high tide and low tide.
Are we there yet? No. Do you want to walk?
What were you worried about it sliding a bit?
Oh, you think?
You're all right.
When you're at a 45-degree angle to the water.
Bit of crabbing going on.
Now you'll see Alvin and Woles utes, they tend to lean over a fair bit when you get off camber. It's because those boys haven't had the sway bars fitted. I mean, him into a heavy-duty sway bar kit for the Land Cruiser to eliminate a lot of that body roll. Whereas myself and Glenn, we've got them fitted, and it's a totally different ride.
We're heading south past the inappropriately named Little Sand Dunes, and they're definitely worth climbing for a photo. We're heading towards Moreton's other town, Kringle, and its famous Days Gutter. Along the way, the track passes through a mangrove forest, an oyster lease, some pretty specky homes, and finally, you have arrived at the world-famous Gutter Bar. Kringle's Gutter Bar is an institution. Part Gilligan's Island, part shrine to Jimmy Buffett, this sleepy backwater has the freshest prawns and oysters and the coldest beers this side of the equator. Now it's called the Gutter Bar because it sits right on the edge of a body of water known as Days Gutter, and this is a place where all of the locals converge and many of the tourists for lunch. You can do fresh oysters and prawns, get a cold beer, you can watch the footy, you can admire the bird life, and just have a fantastic time. Now, every time I come here, they've done something else, and to decorate the place, they pick up, stuff off the beach or whatever. It's you can just walk around. It's like a nautical museum. It's just an amazing place.
Just worried about him latching onto me lip.
Who wouldn't love to while away a few hours here? That's what Pete and Kathy, the owners of the Gutter Bar, have been doing for quite some time. What's the history of the Gutter Bar, Kath?
Look, we understand it's been here for about 35 years. Originally it was just a little house, little hole in the wall, and I guess it's just grown from there, and now it's world famous. We have people come in that say, oh gosh, I remember this place 30 years ago,
Yeah.
I remember this place 35 years
Yeah.
ago, and so the old timers, they love it.
Yeah.
And they like to see it revamped a little bit too, I think, and a lot of people are pretty happy that it's still going and it's still got that laid back, cruisy, beachy atmosphere.
I love the way you've decorated it, and obviously you do a little bit of beach combing. And so who does it? Do people bring that stuff in, or do you find it yourself, Pete? Or?
I think a lot of people do bring artefacts in.
Yeah.
Obviously we find some of it on the beach.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of people drop in surfboards and,
The Gutta Bar is a must-do when you come to Moreton. Whether you're a first-timer or a Coringal local, you'll be welcomed in and you'll love it. From here, it's a short hop around Readers Point to the Timbers and Moreton's Mirror Pool, a natural phenomenon that has an interesting history and is definitely worth a stop.
So Moreton's the second largest sand island in the world, and the interesting thing about sand islands is that they're constantly changing in size and shape. And a really interesting example of that is here at the Mirror Pool at the southern end of Moreton. What was originally a sandbar just to the east of the beach ended up forming an enclosed lagoon, and this is the Mirror Pool. So it's a sanctuary for bird life. There's plenty of fish in there, and you can't fish in it, unfortunately, but it's definitely worth a stop for a look and a photo.
We bust out onto the eastern beach in search of a gutta and the dream of hooking a trophy fish. The other option, of course, is to keep on driving. And with 35 kilometres of white sandy beach ahead, I don't think anyone's looking too stressed about the fishing. Or should I say, lack thereof. If conditions are right, you'll cross plenty of freshwater streams draining into the Pacific on the eastern beach. And these spots are perfect for pulling up for lunch and a swim for you or for your car.
So Moreton Island's like a giant sponge, being a large sand barrier island, like all of the barrier islands around Moreton Bay. When it rains above, the sand soaks up all of that beautiful freshwater and creates perch lakes and freshwater river systems like the one just behind me here that lead out into the open ocean. It makes for great camping. There are a few permanent campsites around here, or just a daytime 2-hour lunch stop with the ARB gang. Absolutely perfect and great for the little kids.
The crew from ARB Burleigh have decided to cool their heels in some crystal clear, spring-fed Moreton Island H2O and are loving their adventure so far.
But technically we are working, aren't we?
Oh, for sure. Product testing, mate, it's called. Product testing.
It must be a great weekend for ARB because it's really about your customer base, isn't it?
It is, yeah, and that's exactly right. We get out, we enjoy it, we get to talk to customers, and, they get to use our product, we get to test it ourselves, so it's good.
What about you, Sinead? Do you like the beach and the bush, all that sort of stuff?
The minute you drive off that barge and you're on the beach, it does feel like you've been here for days and days and days. So getting out here, enjoying what we do every day, that's part of it.
With the northerly building and the sun chasing the horizon, it's time to head back to Bulwer via the northern beach. It's really howling, about 40 knots on the gusts, and crossing at Yellow Patch will require some concentration. From here, as the sun sets, it's an easy drive around Comburo Point to complete our lap of the Moreton map. And into the serene, green and clean surrounds of Castaways Eco Resort, where most of our crew are staying. No real fish landed today, but an adventurous day all the same in paradise. And there's always tomorrow. Moreton Island is well worth a visit at any time of year. MyCat will get you there, and Moreton Island Adventures will keep you entertained when you arrive. ARB can get your Fulby Moreton ready, and we look forward to seeing you at next year's ARB Moreton Island Fishing Classic.